In 1992, Pepsi spent millions of dollars on a Super Bowl ad for a soda that they believed would change the entire beverage industry. The concept was radical for its time. The marketing was unlike anything the soda world had ever seen. And for 3 years, this product was everywhere. In every convenience store, every fast food fountain, every vending machine. People who grew up in the early 90s remember it the way they remember Saturday morning cartoons. Then it disappeared. And Pepsi has spent the last 30 years pretending it never happened. Welcome back to Behind the Menu. Today we're going into the soda wars, specifically the forgotten battleground of the 1990s, where Pepsi and Coca-Cola launched experimental sodas that captured the cultural moment perfectly and then collapsed just as fast as they rose. We're talking about Crystal Pepsi, Surge, OK Soda, and a dozen others. This is a story about marketing, timing, and what happens when a product is too much of its era to survive past it. By the early 1990s, the cola wars between Pepsi and Coca-Cola had been raging for over a decade. Both companies had learned an important lesson from the new Coke disaster of 1985, that consumers had strong emotional attachments to their favorite sodas and would not tolerate core product changes. But the lesson that some executives drew from New Coke wasn't just about protecting the core product, it was that novelty could be enormous. New Coke had gotten more media coverage than any beverage in history before people started hating it. What if you could launch something new, something genuinely different, and keep it good enough that people actually loved it? That question drove the experimental soda explosion of the early 90s. Crystal Pepsi launched nationally in 1993 with one of the most memorable Super Bowl ads ever made. Set to Van Halen's Right Now, the imagery was pure early 90s optimism, clear, clean, new. The product itself was genuinely interesting, a cola-flavored clear carbonated soda, caffeine-free. It had a slightly different flavor profile than regular Pepsi. It sold extraordinarily well in its first year. Some regional markets reported it outselling both regular Pepsi and Coca-Cola in the first months. Pepsi executives were ecstatic. They may have had a generational hit on their hands. Then two things happened. First, the novelty wore off faster than anyone expected. Once the "look, it's clear" conversation had been had, there wasn't much else to say about it. Second, and this is the part that Pepsi has never fully admitted, Coca-Cola deliberately sabotaged Crystal Pepsi. By launching Tab Clear at the same time, Tab Clear was intentionally bad. Coke's internal strategy was to position it alongside Crystal Pepsi and let Tab Clear's failure contaminate Crystal Pepsi's image. It worked. By 1995, Crystal Pepsi was gone. Surge came next, and Surge had a different problem. Launched by Coca-Cola in 1996 to compete with Mountain Dew, Surge was an aggressively marketed citrus soda, aimed at the extreme sports generation, bright green, heavily caffeinated, with a flavor that Mountain Dew fans described as both similar and somehow more intense. For several years in the late 90s, Surge was genuinely enormous, especially in rural and suburban markets. High schools had Surge vending machines. It was part of the cultural furniture. Then Mountain Dew, the original, fought back with its own extreme sports marketing campaign and won the positioning battle. Surge lost shelf space and was discontinued in the US in 2003. What's remarkable about Surge is what happened next. A grassroots campaign kept the memory of Surge alive for over a decade. Petitions were sent to Coca-Cola, letters were written. And in 2014, Coca-Cola relaunched Surge exclusively on Amazon. It sold out within hours. Surge is now available in stores again. The cult won. The 90s soda graveyard is well stocked. OK Soda lasted barely a year in test markets. The marketing was deliberately anti-marketing. The cans had surrealist art, the slogans were passive and strange. The hotline you could call played spoken word content. It was genuinely bizarre and sold terribly. Josta, Pepsi's guarana-infused soda, launched in 1995 as the first guarana drink from a major American brand. People still sell sealed cans online for $20 a piece. Pepsi Blue, Pepsi AM, Coca-Cola, Black Cherry Vanilla. The 90s and 2000s were a graveyard of ambition. Here's the lesson that soda companies have learned slowly and incompletely from all of this. Nostalgia is a superpower. The brands that were discontinued in the 90s have cult followings today that no amount of marketing could manufacture. The internet turned discontinued sodas into living cultural artifacts, and the companies that figure out how to harvest that nostalgia carefully have discovered a genuinely powerful business model that no traditional marketing campaign can replicate. What's the discontinued soda you'd bring back if you could? Crystal Pepsi, Surge, Josta? Drop it in the comments. And subscribe to Behind the Menu for more food history every week. See you next time.